Dear viewers, wherever you are, hello and welcome to this new episode of your program, Out of the Box. Atonement, salvation, redemption, fasting, prayer, alms, are all parts of different world faith. These different world faith, whether they're new or old, Abrahamic or none, they all seek to guide us to have a steadfast life in this world and to live a life of bliss in the hereafter. Yet, although they all seek the same things and they might all agree in principle, which seeks virtue and opposes all sorts of vice, they still disagree on one basic thing. Because according to many religions, being virtuous is not good enough for you to be qualified for a blessed eternal life and to become at one with the Creator. Yet the belief in a specific doctrine, a specific creed, the dogma, is extremely important and comes much more before any other principles or virtues. So, is there no way out? Or is there? Perennialism is an idea, or a philosophy, or sometimes a school that seeks to find an answer to this predicament, to this jeopardy that many people face around the world. So what is perennialism? And what other solution does it give? To shed more light on this, I'm really delighted to be accompanied today from Cairo, Egypt, by Muhammad Farouk, who is a researcher in Islamic philosophy and in comparative religions. Muhammad, hello and welcome to the program.
Hello, Muhammad.
It's really nice to have you here with us. And to start off, what is perennialism in plain and simple English?
Well, first I'd like to thank you for hosting me on this special program.
It's a pleasure.
I'm pleased to have this conversation with you. I hope it brings about some useful insights for the viewers. To start with, let's look at the word itself in terms of the linguistic meaning, and from that we go to the other connotations and implications of the philosophy itself. So the word perennial, or in Latin perennis, it means something that's perpetual, something that is when you say perennial wisdom, we are referring to this sort of tried and tested answers to enduring questions, if I can put it this way. So linguistically, it refers to this element of continuity and something perpetual. As a philosophy, I mean, the earliest that we can trace back the use of this word in Philosophia Perennis, this was in the 15th century when this idea was when this concept was introduced in an attempt to encompass or try to figure out what sort of general principles or ideas that transcend the differences between different nations and cultures across time and geography. So the term perennial philosophy, or Philosophia Perennis, was coined by a European philosopher called Agostino Estioco. Then it was not until the 20th century where this philosophy or concept really flourished and took its fully fledged articulation by an intellectual school called the traditional school. the main figure or the founding figure, if you can put it this way, of this school is a French philosopher called René Guénon, who was from his early life a serious researcher in all religions, and he has joined so many spiritual circles in France and Europe in general, and because at that time there was a strong interest from the West in the East as a response to the strong materialist condition that started to be really shocking. So the West sought resort in areas outside the West, mainly the East and old religions. So at that time in France and in Europe in general, there was a strong interest in these things, and eventually he realized that there is what we call tradition, or what he called tradition, the capital T tradition, is not really what we're used to when you use this word. Tradition is not just something that is conventional or we are used to. Tradition is a transmission of something or teachings that in the beginning they are linked to a divine origin or a divine revelation. So
Mohammed, to put it in like simpler words in a simpler context here. So I have this picture in the background, and it shows a tree with a common stem, and then the branches branch out of the tree, lead to all the different faith and beliefs out there. So you said like they had a very materialistic, harsh, hard life that just believed in everything tangible.
yes.
So if I cannot see it, I will not believe it, period. So
Yes.
the more metaphysical, more spiritual Orient or East for something that was, more humanistic, more, looked at the world in terms of not only the terrestrial presence, but something that is beyond.
Celestial.
Exactly. So if we look at this tree behind me here, do you think that this can be a good representation of perennialism, just to put it in the most simple definition? So you said that like you started with the denotation of the word, and then you said there's a connotation to it as well. So in terms of the connotation, like the not the the lexical meaning of the word, but the connotation, the general idea that would jump to your head, would this picture be one of them?
Yes, but we need to add few any clarifications that when I look at this picture, the Perennialist perspective acknowledges that all authentic Orthodox religions that have created a human civilization based on spiritual principles and continued with a sense of continuity to produce a civilization that is providing spiritual sustenance to the followers of a faith, and producing a sacred art that is symbolic and acts as a tool to show the realities. It uses symbols to show spiritual realities, and in this trajectory over time, it has produced saints, and not only so. It was not only based on faith in the exoteric sense. Like, and let me stop here to clarify something, that in perennial philosophy, when in its conception of a religion or religions, there is an exoteric side that has to do with with the dogma, with the legal aspect. I mean, like in Islam, we call this the Sharia side, the part that has to do with the legalities, and there is the esoteric dimension of religion, which is the inner mystical dimension that is for those who have the aptitude to pursue, or those who have a spiritual, they pursue something that's more than just mere salvation in the hereafter. So the exoteric side provides because the exoteric side is addressed to everybody, all the followers of the faith. So it provides the kind of framework and the minimum requirement for salvation, while the esoteric side, it includes, it includes the exoteric aspect. It is not divorced from it. It includes it, but it transcends it to higher purposes of realization and attaining to truth. So to conclude this, when I look at the tree, yes, all religions that are based on that have maintained a degree of orthodoxy and authenticity, they share the basic metaphysical truth, but on the level of details, on the level of theology, on the level of practices, they are different because each one of them is an expression of one side of that transcendent truth. The truth is unlimited, so each one of them had an emphasis on a particular aspect of it.
So
and include different mentalities across history and across different locations.
So 3 points from what you said here, like you put a lot of emphasis on orthodoxy.
Yes.
Now, orthodoxy is a very controversial term because I would claim, you would claim X, Y, or Z. Everyone would claim to be an orthodox something. And like each one would claim that, no, the others have went astray, but I am on the right path. Regardless of whether those people came before me or after me, doesn't matter. But I have the orthodox, I have the right way of doing things. So what would be orthodoxy? That's my first part of the question. The second part, you talked about an esoteric and an exoteric perspective here, and something like jurisprudence. Like in every religion, there are some specific do's and don'ts and specific rules and whatnot, which might be actually quite similar in many areas. They might differ in other areas too. But in terms of orthodoxy and eso versus exoteric, where would you put the divine? The way of looking at the deity, which might be very different. The attributes of the God in most religions is the same. So like he's omnipotent. Okay, so he's invincible. He's like he is beyond, he's omniscient. He's all-knowing, and so on. He's omnipresent. But if we go into the persons of the God, be it one God, a triune God, if there are different persons of the God, was there an incarnate of the God, it might be very different. And if I would fail to believe in any one of these, I am out.
Yes.
And so how would you define orthodoxy and eso versus exoteric with regards to the divine from the perennial point of view?
That's an interesting question and would help us to delve into the different aspects of perennial philosophy. First of all, the idea of orthodoxy here is different. I mean, from Aquinas' perspective, is different from how orthodoxy or describing something as orthodox or non-orthodox from within, from the theological perspective. Because, for example, that if we talk about the different theological schools in Islam. So within a particular faith, like Islam, there are different theological positions, and some might be close to each other, and some others might depart from others. So here the designation of orthodox or not is is uh, is internal and specific within the sphere of theology itself. But actually when the concept of orthodoxy, and that was René Guénon has tried to articulate in his books early in the 20th century, is a kind of different. It looks from a different angle. It's more general and more inclusive of a wider spectrum of possibilities. So orthodoxy from Perennialist perspective is the extent to which a particular faith, a particular tradition, has preserved the basic constituents of both its doctrine and its method. So it is not a theological position. It is not a specific view of God. It has to do with the entirety of a basic tradition and to what extent it is maintaining its core values, its core salvific efficacy, its core the symbolic tools it has that creates an ambience for the followers of the faith. The idea of ambience is quite important from a Perennialist perspective because the symbols in the rituals, I mean, rituals are understood symbolically, that they have a certain, they operate in a certain way and not just done for the sake of obedience. They operate in a certain way, in a way that converse with the laws of nature and with the nature in general. So and this would lead us, actually addressing your second question would help us understand the first in a better way, because if we compare, for example, basically there are two families of religion. Loosely put, the Abrahamic religions and the Dharmic religions. Mm-hmm. When I say Dharmic, I mean the Eastern religions, like Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism. So of course there are clear theological differences. One cannot deny that. And the Perennial philosophy is not about diluting differences. It's just about understanding them, because these differences have a role, they have a function. So the divine reality in Abrahamic religions is mainly conceived as with the God, and God as a person, a personal God, a God that has clear attributes, that has characteristics that are understood. He's a God that is just, that's merciful, with a whole array of attributes that cannot be understood unless God is seen as a person. While, for example, in Buddhism, and Buddhism is usually misunderstood. People say that Buddhists worship the Buddha, or they say that Buddhism is an atheist, is an atheist doctrine, because it has no conception of God. But the truth is, when you read and delve into the Buddhist tradition, and not just the general ideas, that although there is no depiction of a God, just like in other religions, especially Abrahamic, but the concept that there is one absolute reality is quite there. It's quite present in the perspective of reality itself. That so it is not an atheist. To put it more accurately, we can say that it is a non-theist, but not an atheist.
So
The deity is not personalized in that personified way. But so here's an example where there is a theological difference, but there is a similarity on a metaphysical level. So theologically it's different, but metaphysically and in an abstract way, both families of religion, or both Buddhism and Abraham, they share the idea of beyondness, that there is a reality that is beyond the tangible world.
so Muhammad here, like someone who's listening to what you've just said might have these. Yes, I want you to please clarify, are these misconceptions? Is this correct or not?
Sure.
First one would be, is perennialism per se, is it really something that can be understood by the layman, or is it in itself a very esoteric, message, or like philosophy or doctrine? That's one thing. Another thing is that somebody might say, is this Gnosticism? Like, are you, exalting yourself higher than the texts? So we have specific texts here, so just put that aside. Let's not, so let's sort of unite, become at one with the creator, and which might really resonate a lot with what people might know about Gnosticism, having this gnosis, this knowledge about that God, and which transcends and exalts itself above all forms of detailed texts.
Well, let's address the first question: is premillennialism for a layman or otherwise? Actually, premillennialism is, by definition, is something that it's a perspective or interpretation that's quite relevant or relating to the modern times. I mean, in ancient times, when each religious world, so to speak, was living in one isolated domain, there was little relevance, even for theologians and elite scholars. There was little relevance to understand whether other religions are effective or are they efficacious or not, can we provide salvation or not, they are, to what extent we have maintained some reality or not, because the first and foremost priority of a religious world or a religious tradition was to guide people. I mean, there was no need for that question to be posed in the first place. But actually, in the modern world, where these boundaries between the traditional worlds have actually fallen, and people started to know and to see and become close to others from different faiths. So the question of why should I follow a particular faith has become quite relevant, and why should I follow a particular religion if they contradict each other? So one cannot, especially, I mean, people of an intellectual nature or an intellectual inclination, they do not have the luxury that the ancients used to have, where he just needs to do his ritual peacefully, and that's it. The modern world is full of intellectual challenges and problems that really cannot leave one to worship God in peace. So here, the previous perspective is an attempt to explain and solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, for many people, it might not be needed. It's not relevant. I mean, he's just following. He's inside his faith and following his, doing his rituals and having his belief system, and things are quite fine. But I think, I mean, increasingly with time, and the more I mean, with time, the new generations might find new challenges or new hurdles that prevent them from following a religion, or so many reasons to question. So even this layman who does not, who is for the moment, for him this is irrelevant. Maybe his sons or the grandsons might face a problem that he's not aware of. So perennialism is not, and this is something that's usually misunderstood. It is not a faith that competes with any religious theology. It is not a replacement, or and it's not an item of faith that is required for salvation. It's an intellectual perspective. I mean, from a perennialist perspective, one who does not believe in perennialism, he has nothing to lose, in religiously speaking. He can just pursue his traditional religiosity with no problem. It's an intellectual answer for those who need it. And now for your second question, perennial philosophy is absolutely not about uniting or unifying anything. On the contrary, it's a perspective that understands and respects the differences between religions, and emphasize that these boundaries should stay there, because it sees each faith as a one world that's homogeneous. That is, each of its components is relevant to other components. It's the whole world that works in harmony within itself. So okay. It is not something else that is practiced. Perennialism is not something to be practiced. It's an intellectual perspective, and it emphasizes that one should actually belong to a specific religious tradition, and as opposed to modernist New Age currents that invite people to pick and choose from here and there based on their own personal subjective preferences. It's so much against that.
So it just puts aside exclusivity in terms of the path to salvation, but exclusivity within the dogma itself, within the doctrine, within the teachings, within the text, should stay. It would enforce that, it would recommend that, but it would just not accept exclusivity. It's not only one way to the divine. It's not only one way to the metaphysical world. It's not only one way to salvation. But other than that, it's a possibility. Now, you just mentioned like New Age spirituality, and so how different again is perennialism from New Age spirituality? So I'm just spiritual. I believe in a metaphysical world. So or just in the Platonic context, I believe in a world of ideal forms. I believe in that. And I believe in, in good, in virtue, etc., etc., period. That's it. I do not need to believe in a specific, thing. And it's again, more spiritual. It's more spiritual. It's more sort of meditating and sort of uniting with the divine. How is perennialism different from that?
It's different in so many ways. First of all, New Age movement, if we trace back its roots, it really comes from the work of Western travelers who traveled to the East, to India, to China, and different parts of the East. And eclectically, they have taken some of these principles, practices out of its traditional context, and they sort of package this in a way or based on a criteria that's not really objective or known to suit the modern consumer, if I can put it this way. Spirituality sometimes it could be a commodity to be consumed. So on the other way, a Perennial philosophy, especially from the traditionalist or the perspective of the traditional school, it emphasized that a tradition is one system. Cannot just pick and choose from different systems. And one might ask, just like you just said, and why not? I mean, why can't I do that? The thing is to start in the first place, the purpose of or the nature of a tradition, and one of its key goals is for one to transcend his individual ego, so to speak. So if we emphasize or we encompass spirituality as something that is personally, individually, subjectively manufactured, so that defeats the whole purpose of tradition, because one cannot transcend himself by himself. The link to a higher realm of transcendent reality and the communication between the earthly plane, the terrestrial plane, and a celestial plane is something that is of key importance for this objective, for this goal to happen. So
yeah, like
that's basically it. And the other thing is that, and when we say, I mean, of course, there is a critique within the traditional school of the concept of moralism, in the sense that it's all about the morals. It's all about as much as morality is, or morals are something important for the human condition, but the complex nature of the human being cannot be just reduced to morality. I mean, human being by his nature, it has something that transcends the idea of morality. I mean, morality cannot encompass the entire reality of human being. And for example, now I remember an example that Mother Teresa. I mean, she was well known for her charity works and the huge philanthropic and humanitarian work that she devoted her life to. And after her death, we found in her diaries and memoirs some writings that indicate that she was living in a painful state of doubt. I mean, doubt in terms of faith. So that's not to mean that she was to negate her stature or anything, but this is just an indicator that man does not only need to act or behave in a good way. And man, I don't say a man here, a human being, man and woman, he has an eternal quest for a meaning. He needs to live in a meaning universe and have a meaningful life. So just acting in a good way is not just enough. I mean, because it's all about the intention. Why should anyone act or have a good behavior? I mean, is this just to comply with the norms of a society, or because this is this is a manifestation of a higher reality? And this is what's called the spiritual virtues. I mean, in some of the writers of within the traditional school, the Swiss philosopher Friedrich Schwann, he has highlighted this principle about the spiritual virtues as opposed to social moralism. One in spiritual virtue is something that is practiced because it is linked to a higher reality. I mean, we are honest, or we would like to be honest, because there is something, because there is truth in the first place. Because that's what makes honesty a possibility. That to exist. Otherwise, it becomes groundless.
So yeah, like it is, you know, something that I think everyone might see every now and then, but a lot of people who would resort to, you know, New Age spirituality or call themselves spiritual are people who would like to be always referred to as very eloquent and articulate people.
Yes, yes.
It's something to, like, you know, say I'm not part of the riffraff. I'm from the elite. I am part of the, you know, the chosen ones. And you know, it has this very elitist, egoistic perspective.
That's true.
How does perennialism look at atheism? You know, or something again like deism? How does it relate to these things? So again, what a lot of people might think of course, is that someone who is an atheist is an immoral person, which of course is not true. So, and to go deeper actually in history, some people would say that why are we just giving ourselves such a headache with religions? Okay, if just one religion is the exclusive way, or even them combined, just choose one of them. Well, how about the world before that? So, for instance, you know, like the Book of the Dead in ancient Egypt was about a millennium before the Ten Commandments.
Yes.
And it had a lot of teachings and morals and values that were not present in the Ten Commandments. So why only these? Why can't I choose something different? Like, you know, because in these religions, they might be missing out on many things. And so again, the particular problem actually for many people is with Abrahamic religions, because Abrahamic religions have quite a problem, and in particular Islam and Christianity, because it has this universal view of the religion itself. So there's preaching. There are, you know, missionaries. So preaching and missionaries is a concept that is quite unheard of in many other religions. You know, like it's because it's mostly a local or an ethnic religion, and they're not troubling themselves with inviting other people or ridiculing or, like, you know, belittling other faith. So my question here is can perennialism be considered a way out of this very rigid Abrahamic religion's perspective of do this and don't do that, and if you don't believe in this, then you have no salvation, there's no way, there's no redemption, you can never be saved? Can perennialism be specifically a way out of the Abrahamic religions, especially that nowadays something that is being, mentioned here and there is the Abrahamic faith, the Abrahamic sort of accord between the three top Abrahamic faiths.
Yeah.
Is perennialism a way out of all of this sort of distortion?
Actually, there are many points to tackle here, so we take them one by one. First of all, in perennial philosophy, or from a traditionalist perspective, it's not only inclusive of present-day religions. I mean, it's also inclusive of ancient religions, like ancient Egyptian, Taoism. Even we can go as far as the old Native American religions. So it's not only about present-day religion, because there is in perennial philosophy there is a view of history. There's a philosophy of history that's quite different from the modernist linear view of history that and it's also different from how the Western academia is understanding or trying to deal with the history of religions. So even ancient religions, they have a divine origin. They are not man-made. They are not just. I mean, it's not just people have gathered and did some brainstorming about what creed and what's good and bad, and because as you mentioned earlier, the fact that a particular civilization has lived for, I mean, in the case of Egyptian civilization, we're talking about thousands of years. And this civilization has produced things like sacred art and sacred architecture, and there was a culture flourishing that has specific characteristics quite different from the modern age, where, for example, the idea of art in the traditional civilization is not about one person who is expressing the agonies of his psyche and trying to magnify his own suffering or problems, no matter how this is legitimate in its own self. But traditional art was not about ego. Traditional artists would not sign their names for their works because they are totally oriented towards the function of awakening the sense of the beautiful in the soul of the recipient of this art. So that's a detailed subject of its own. So to answer your first question, there is nothing before religions. I mean, they have existed there, even in simple and in different forms since the dawn of creation. Now, regarding the other, how could perennialism could be a way out? I mean, of it. First of all, it's not a way out of it. Perennialism cannot be a way out of religion itself, because religion in religion itself, in its core, is not something that can lend itself to corruption. It's the human history that's always associated with these problems, and even things that in Abrahamic religion that could be seen as a possible cause or potential for fanaticism or things like this. They are things that to be understood in its broader historical context. And I mean, we should not forget that all the philosophers of the perennialist school are you're strict followers of a particular religion. I mean, mostly Sufi Muslims. So, but what it can provide is as you mentioned earlier, is a perspective that is not only accept diversity both based on utilitarian needs, like the need to be tolerant for purposes of coexistence. No, it provides an acceptance or an understanding of diversity that's based on intellectual and objective grounds. It's not just a sentimentalist kind of tolerance that we just need to love each other and all that. No, it's it provides one unique thing that I mean, at some point we would think that for someone to be tolerant or to be accepting, one has to do this from a secular vantage point. That you have to be secular in order to understand. But that's not really, we cannot call this tolerance because that's really a different. I mean, in the first place, you're outside the sphere of the religion itself. So it provides something unique that one can be a practicing. I mean, for example, one could be a practicing Muslim who is totally immersed in his tradition, and yet he can see and appreciate some truths, some elements of beauty, some elements of similarities in terms of virtues, some similarities in terms of how we see the world, because and this is one thing that perennial philosophy can contribute to in the challenges of the current age, because we live in a world of complex challenges. We have the environmental crisis. We have the disintegration of the concept of families, and we have moved from extended family to the nuclear family, and now even that is being questioned to create just one isolated individual. So within these challenges, we don't have this luxury to delve into the hair-splitting differences over theological issues. I mean, they are still important on their own plane, within on the scholarly plane, and for some people who are interested in this. But now we should really choose our, the fronts that we fight in, or the causes that we call for, quite carefully. So one, if like we can find easily that two people who belong to different religions in terms of the faith itself, but they have a similar worldview regarding the world, what the world is, and what man is.
Mm-hmm.
So they would find themselves practically in alliance regarding so many issues. They have the same respect and to preserve family values. They have the same respect for or appreciation of the value of a strong society where there is cooperation, and there is solidarity and things like this. While at the same time, one can find one that belongs to the same faith that he belongs to, or the same religion. But in terms of worldview, in terms of how he sees the world, how he sees what a human being is and what his vocation on earth is, he's following a quite modernist, materialist view that encourages destruction of environment, that encourages further digitalization of life. So So here things are not as simple as earlier times. So one thing that a perennial philosophy can contribute to is really having a wise and understanding of what to affiliate myself to, what causes to fight for.
Maybe last but not least, the topic is a very, very rich and extended topic. It's so hard really to cram everything in one episode. So, but my last question here to you, and I think is a very important question in the minds of many people. So one of the major impediments, according to the modern world today, are like clergy, theologians, the hidden theocracy there, the patriarchy. How does perennialism look at this? Is it pro, patriarchy, theocracy? Is it against it? Is it somewhere in the middle? Or does it not address it at all?
To go back one step, from a previous perspective, the danger or the evil that clergy might pose is less dangerous than the evil and potential danger on humanity itself that modernist, materialist, consumers institutions are posing, because with all the corruption that might be attributed or possible to affect the religious institution, for example, the church in Europe and all the problems and corruption that was associated with it. The problem, as much as we of course we have to condemn that and acknowledge its negative impact, but it is always seen as something that falls or deviates from an ideal. The worldview is the same, that there is virtue, there is truth, there is goodness, and corruption is a deviation from that. The problem and the hidden evil, which might not be as apparent as those evils, is that modernity presents itself as a totalitarian solution. It does not. Paradoxically, at the same time, the statement there is no truth or truth is relative. I mean, that statement itself is being used as an absolute statement. Mm-hmm. So actually, what's being presented as the axioms of what life should be. Ideas like comfort, development, freedom, identity politics, equality. I mean, as much as they are in an abstract, principial way, there's something good about them, but the way they're being professed and presented as something that is final and ultimate, that should be. They are treated as many gods actually. So in comparison to the evil of clergy, here the idea of a standard or ideal itself is not there. Whatever is when you believe in a linear progressivist understanding of time, that the more time passes, the better we become, and this becomes an absolutist and total view that cannot be questioned. So those who are leading this, what happened, those who are leading and directing the fashions of time, there is no way to question them, because for the first time in history, there is a civilization that is it create that bases its legitimacy based on what is new, what is there is no measurement or comparison to other criteria than itself. If something is new, so necessarily it's better than what's before, and thus create a huge danger, because you cannot really measure or identify the corruption that you would be able to do with the clergy, because the clergy represents something that is higher than what they are. So for even for the layman, he can spot or identify the corruption. But with the worldview that modernity presents regarding time and progress and utopianism, I mean, this is a key important with the problem of the modern time, because modernity promises utopianism, and when you believe that utopia is possible, so you would do easy things as destroying native cultures. You would believe that end justifies the means, because if utopia is possible, so any price is acceptable.
Hamad, really, at the end of this interview, I can't thank you enough for the insight that you gave to our dear viewers here. I know it's a very, very lengthy and a very deep topic that has a lot of profound ideas to discuss, but it's impossible to contain it all in one short episode. So thank you very much again for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Muhammad, for allowing me this opportunity to have this interesting discussion.
It was my pleasure. Now, dear viewers, if we were to recap and conclude here, let's just pinpoint some things here. Text might be sacred, but interpretation is not. So sacred might be divine, might come from the divine, actually, is ordained by the divine, but the interpretation is human. So a very large part of the religions we have today is human. And so the text, like we talked in the very beginning of this interview about the denotation and the connotation of a word, the lexical meaning and the indirect meaning. These are the things that people can really disagree about, and then the outcome might be absolutely different. So it is open to interpretation. But on the other hand, we should never, ever escape from the absolutism, the oppression of theocracy, to another form of oppression and dictatorship. So extreme or fundamentalist people who believe in a specific faith would not accept anyone who would talk about atheism or like the non-existence of a divine or the first cause in the Platonic terms, the first mover. But at the same time, the flip of this coin really is that the atheists and extreme atheists and extreme secularists as well will not accept the other point of view. So perennialism actually is rather a very democratic, really democratic way. But it's a form of a conservative one too. So it does not just make you calls for people to be out of bounds. So I cannot just cherry pick from here and there, whatever I want. No, no. You would stay with the doctrine, but again, it opposes the overinflated ego that is unfortunately growing by the hour in every human. Since the dawn of time and until today, it grows more and more by time. And the whole notion is that new is better than old. Yes, new might be definitely better than old in structure, but what is the outcome that might come out of it? Well, you know, modern nukes are definitely better than old nukes. But what is the effect of the modern nukes? What will it do to humanity? So let's keep our eyes wide open, because unfortunately, a lot of people want our eyes to be wide shut. Dear viewers, until we meet again, have a very pleasant time. Please take good care.